Hi, I'm Larkin. My sister slapped me across the face and screamed, "Get out and never come back!" And my parents? They just sat there, silent, like it was normal, like I was the problem. For years, I paid the mortgage on a house I wasn't even welcome in. But when I finally stopped sending money, they didn't apologize. They demanded answers, so I gave them one. And what happened after changed everything. Before we dive in, what time are you watching this and where are you tuning in from? Let us know in the comments. And tell me this, what would you have done if your own family treated you like a bank account they could slap and drain at will, then still expected your loyalty? I remember how heavy that evening felt before I even stepped inside. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, leaving the sky streaked with that orange-pink haze you only get in early autumn. My parents' house sat at the end of the cul-de-sac, same chipped shutters, same creaking porch swing. It smelled like Velma's pot roast before I even reached the front steps, that familiar blend of thyme and beef slow-cooked all day. Normally, that scent would feel like home. Tonight, it just made my stomach tighten. I walked in, offering the usual, "Hey everyone," but my words barely got a glance. Marjorie's laugh carried from the kitchen, sharp and deliberate, like she wanted me to hear how good of a time she was having without me. Velma gave me that tight smile she always used when she wanted to seem polite, but couldn't hide the judgment underneath. Clarence stayed in his chair, fiddling with his glasses as though polishing them could make him invisible. "Long day at work?" Velma asked. But it wasn't really a question. It was a statement, one that said, "Don't bring your exhaustion in here." "Yeah, just glad to sit down," I replied, taking my usual seat at the end of the table. My place. Always the quiet end, near the kitchen door, while Marjorie basked in the head of the table spot like it was her throne. Dinner started the way it always did. Velma serving, Clarence mumbling grace, Marjorie taking every opportunity to fill the air with stories about herself. I tried to focus on the roast, tried to ignore the little digs, the sideways glances. I told myself, just get through this meal. But it didn't stay quiet for long. "So, Mr. Big Shot," Marjorie started, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "You didn't even call last week when we had that plumbing issue? Thought you were too busy playing rich guy to help your family now?" I blinked, caught off guard. I didn't even know about it. No one called me. "You always have an excuse," she said, laughing but not in a funny way. "You think you're better than us now? That's the problem." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. "What are you talking about? I've been paying the mortgage on this house for 3 years. I've covered Dad's prescriptions. How does that make me think I'm better than you?" That's when she slammed her hand on the table, making the silverware jump. "Don't you dare throw money in my face like you're some savior." Velma kept her eyes on her plate. Clarence rubbed his temple. No one told her to stop. No one defended me. The heat in my chest climbed. "Marjorie, I'm not trying to—" "Shut up!" she snapped. And before I could even process it, her hand came across my face. The slap cracked through the room like a gunshot. My cheek burned, but what stung worse was the silence after. I stared at her, then at my parents, waiting. Clarence shifted in his chair, still polishing those damn glasses. Velma cut another piece of roast like nothing had happened. "Are you serious?" I asked, my voice shaking. "You're just okay with that?" No one answered. No apology. No rebuke. Just that heavy, suffocating quiet. Finally, Velma sighed and said softly, "Don't make this a bigger scene than it already is." And that's when something in me broke. I stood up, slow and steady, my chair scraping against the tile. "Don't worry," I said, reaching for my coat. "I won't make a scene." No one stopped me. I walked toward the door, every step echoing in my ears. My fingers brushed against the small silver key pendant hanging from my neck. Mom had given it to me years ago, telling me it meant I'd always have a place here. Tonight, it felt like a weight chained to me. I opened the door and stepped into the cool night air. That was the last time I walked out of that house as their son. But I didn't know how much they still planned to take from me. But when the texts started rolling in, I knew this wasn't over. At first, I ignored them. 2 weeks had passed since that dinner, but the slap still echoed in my head. The quiet of my small apartment felt like a refuge compared to the suffocating air of my parents' house. I sat at my kitchen table, the only light coming from the flickering lamp in the corner and the glow of my phone screen lighting up every few minutes. Velma's name kept flashing. "We need to talk. This isn't just about you." Another one followed. "Your father and I are scared. Please call back." I pushed the phone aside, wrapped my hands around a mug of bitter coffee, and stared at the window. My reflection looked tired, older somehow. Every time I thought about that night, about how they all just sat there while Marjorie humiliated me, it wasn't the slap that cut deepest. It was their silence. The next day, the calls started. I let them go to voicemail, but Velma's voice came through anyway, shaking but carefully measured. "You know we can't do this without you. The bank's been calling. If you don't help, we could lose the house. Is that what you want? For us to be out on the street?" I set the phone down. My chest tightened. Not a word about what happened. Not a single, "I'm sorry." Just straight to what they wanted. By the third day, the messages turned sharper. "You're our family." "Family sticks together," Velma wrote. Then Clarence chimed in for the first time. "It's your responsibility as the one who makes real money." Real money. Like I was a paycheck, not a person. I couldn't sit still anymore. I grabbed my laptop and opened my banking app. Page after page of transfers stared back at me. Thousands. All those months I'd been covering the mortgage, assuming that's where the money went. I scrolled through the totals, my pulse pounding harder with each line. Finally, I called Clarence. He answered on the second ring, voice flat. "Son?" "I need to see the mortgage statements," I said. A pause. "Why?" "Because I've sent you more than enough to cover that house 10 times over. So where's it going?" He exhaled. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." "Where is it going?" There was another pause, longer this time, before he muttered, "It's been covering other family needs." "What does that mean?" My voice was shaking now. "Your sister's had some debts. We've been helping her catch up. And there were some things we needed to take care of." My head spun. "So you've been taking my money to clean up Marjorie's mess? And you didn't think to tell me?" Velma cut in. I hadn't even realized she was on speaker. "Don't you start acting like this is charity. We raised you. You wouldn't be where you are without us." My laugh came out sharp and bitter. "You're unbelievable. I've been breaking my back to keep a roof over your heads, and you're using me to bail her out. And you still haven't said one word about what happened that night." "You're ungrateful," Velma snapped. "Everything we've done for you, and now you throw it in our faces because we need a little help." Ungrateful. The words sliced through me. They didn't see me as their child. They saw me as their lifeline. I ended the call before I said something I couldn't take back. I sat there in the dim kitchen, breathing hard, staring at the phone like it had personally betrayed me. My hand drifted to the silver key pendant at my neck. Velma's words echoed in my memory. "This key means you'll always belong here." Belong. It felt like a joke now, a promise that had always been conditional. They wanted me back, not as their son, but as their walking wallet. And for a moment I almost gave in. Nay, until I remembered the last time I tried to buy their love. The morning after that call, I woke up with a dull headache from too little sleep and too many thoughts running in circles. My kitchen table was still covered in crumpled letters, unopened envelopes, and printouts of bank transfers. I sat down slowly, staring at the mess like it was a crime scene, and maybe, in a way, it was. I traced my fingers along one of the receipts. Each line felt like a quiet confession of the years I spent trying to keep them afloat, believing that if I just gave enough, my time, my energy, my money, maybe they'd finally see me as more than a tool to fix their problems. How did I become their safety net? I muttered into the stillness. And when did I forget to live my own life? My eyes burned as the memories came rushing in. I saw myself at 22, standing behind the counter of a gas station on the graveyard shift, bone-tired, listening to Velma on the phone, crying about overdue utilities. I didn't even think twice. I picked up another shift, pushed my dreams of grad school further down the road, and sent her the cash. Then there was that time I handed her an envelope with emergency money, only to see Marjorie parading a brand new designer handbag the next week. She grinned when I asked about it. "Oh, come on, you make more than you need. Don't be so uptight." And the night I finally got promoted at work, the one night I wanted to celebrate, Clarence called me in a panic. Marjorie's car was about to be repossessed, and if I didn't pay by morning, it'd be gone. I remember leaving the celebration early, slipping out the back door while my coworkers raised a toast I couldn't even stay for. Back then, I told myself it was what family did, but now, it just felt like theft dressed up as obligation. My phone buzzed on the table, interrupting my thoughts. Another text from Velma. "We're in trouble. Don't ignore us." I ignored it anyway. Instead, I grabbed the phone and dialed the bank. If I was going to keep hearing about how essential I was to keeping the house, I wanted proof that my money was actually going there. "Hi," I said when the representative answered. "I need to verify payments on the mortgage account for Clarence and Velma." There was a pause, keys clicking in the background. "Sir, I see here the account is 5 months delinquent." I froze. "I've been sending money every month. Thousands. Are you telling me the mortgage hasn't been paid?" "I can only share that payments have not been made on schedule for quite some time," she said gently, like she could hear the anger building in my silence. I thanked her and ended the call. My hands shook as I set the phone down. 5 months. 5 months of me funneling my hard-earned money into that house while they, covered Marjorie's debts? Bought themselves more time to keep living like nothing was wrong? Was I funding their comfort while they let the roof cave in? I whispered. The guilt hit me first, hot and suffocating. I thought about how many hours I'd worked, how many nights I'd stayed late at the office, how many parts of my own life I'd cut away to keep them safe. And then the guilt curdled into rage. I saw Marjorie's face in my mind, her smirk right before she slapped me, like she knew she'd get away with it. I saw my parents staring at their plates, pretending not to see me standing there humiliated. No more. I reached up and grabbed the silver key pendant around my neck, the one Velma gave me when she said, "This key means you'll always belong here." I pressed it so hard into my palm, it left a mark. "You don't own me anymore," I said quietly, like I was speaking to all of them at once. For the first time, I actually believed it. If they wanted a confrontation, I'd give them one, but on my terms. The next call I made wasn't to them. It was to someone who could help me take back control. 2 days later, I sat in the corner of a busy coffee shop, my laptop open and a stack of papers spread across the table. The low hum of conversation and clinking cups around me felt oddly comforting, like a buffer between me and the chaos of my family. I stirred my black coffee absently, staring at the columns of numbers I'd printed. Every transfer, every check, every loan I had sent over the past 2 years. My chest tightened just looking at it. When I saw Deshaun walk in, I felt my shoulders relax slightly. He spotted me immediately, his easy grin cutting through my tension as he slid into the chair across from me. "Man, it's been a minute," he said, glancing at the pile of documents. "But from the look of this mess, I'm guessing this isn't just a catch-up coffee." I let out a bitter laugh. "You could say that. I need help, Deshaun. Real help. They've been using me, and I can't even wrap my head around how deep it goes. He nodded, scanning the pages. I watched his expression change as he flipped through the printouts. His brows furrowed, then his lips tightened into a thin line. "Larkin," he said finally, his voice low, "you realize this is more than just helping out? You've been paying into that property for long enough that, depending on how it's structured, you could actually claim equitable interest. This isn't just moral leverage. You might have legal standing." I blinked at him, trying to process his words. "Wait, you're saying I might actually own part of that house?" "Not formally, maybe," he clarified. "But with the amount you've contributed, a good attorney could make a case that you have a financial stake. They've been letting you believe it's their house, their problem, while using you like an ATM. And worse, they didn't tell you the full truth about the mortgage being behind." It hit me like a punch. All this time, I'd been thinking of myself as the outsider, the one bailing them out of their own disasters. But to hear him say I might have actual standing, that I wasn't just some expendable provider, it stirred something inside me I hadn't felt in weeks. "They've kept me in the dark on purpose," I said, more to myself than to him. Deshawn leaned forward. "It's time you stop playing their game. No more quiet support. You need a strategy." My phone buzzed on the table, jolting me. I glanced at the screen, a voicemail from Mom. For a moment, I debated ignoring it, but my hand moved on its own, pressing play. Her voice filled the small space between us, sharp and cold. "If you don't fix this by Friday, we'll lose everything, and don't expect to be welcome at our family table ever again." Deshawn raised his eyebrows. "Charming?" I almost laughed, but the sound came out more like a scoff, as if I was welcome after the slap. We sat in silence for a moment before Deshawn spoke again. "So, what now? Are you ready to stop letting them dictate the terms?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I'm done being their safety net." We spent the next hour mapping out a plan. Step 1, stop all payments immediately. Step 2, request a full accounting from the bank. Step 3, get legal counsel to draft documents asserting my interest in the house. Deshawn promised to connect me with a real estate attorney he trusted. As we packed up, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. For the first time, I wasn't just reacting, I was acting. Back at my apartment, I went straight to my bedroom. I opened the drawer of my nightstand and took out the silver key pendant. I held it in my palm, the cool metal pressing against my skin. "That house isn't my prison anymore," I whispered. Then I set it in the drawer and closed it. If they thought I'd crawl back, they were about to see who I really was. But the moment I took control, they struck back harder than I expected. I woke up the next morning with a clear plan in my head, though my body felt like it hadn't slept at all. The apartment was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. I sat at my kitchen table, phone in hand, staring at the message I'd typed out the night before. My thumb hovered over send. "I will no longer be making any payments toward the house until I have full documentation of where my contributions have gone." 22 words. That was it. No apologies. No qualifiers. My hands trembled slightly as I pressed send. It wasn't fear of losing them. It was the finality of acknowledging, even to myself, that things had changed. That I wasn't going to play my role as their provider anymore. For the first hour, there was nothing. I brewed coffee, checked emails, tried to distract myself with work spreadsheets, but every buzz of my phone pulled my focus back. I knew they'd seen it. They were probably stewing. And then, at 10:14 a.m., Velma replied, "You've officially abandoned us. I don't have a son anymore." Just like that. No hesitation, no conversation, just a pronouncement, like she'd ripped out my title in the family and thrown it away. A few minutes later, Clarence chimed in with his own contribution. Pathetic. I stared at the words, my throat tightening. There was a time when a message like that from him would have sent me spiraling, desperate to prove I wasn't what he thought I was. But now, all I felt was a simmering mix of grief and defiance. By noon, I buried myself in work, taking calls and handling tasks at my desk. The steady rhythm of my job helped drown out the ache in my chest. But even there, I could feel them. Their words followed me like a shadow. Around 8 p.m. I got home, heated up leftover pasta, and collapsed on the couch. That's when my phone rang. Marjorie. I hesitated for a moment, my finger hovering over decline. But part of me wanted to hear what she had to say. Maybe she'd try to be the voice of reason. Maybe she'd, I don't know, surprise me. I answered. Her voice cut through the line like glass. You think you're better than us now? You cut us off like we're nothing. Who do you think you are? I'm not doing this, I said, keeping my voice even. Oh, you're doing this. You've been walking around like you're some savior, paying for everything. And now you're acting like we owe you. You'll regret this. Don't forget who took you in when no one else wanted you. The words landed like a punch. I wanted to tell her that being taken in wasn't the gift she thought it was. It was conditional, laced with obligations I never agreed to. But I didn't. I just hung up. The silence after I ended the call was deafening. I sat there staring at the wall, replaying her words over and over. Don't forget who took you in. It echoed in my head like a twisted mantra. For a moment, I wondered if they were right. Was I really abandoning them? Was I turning my back on family? But then I remembered Deshawn's voice in that coffee shop. You've been used, Larkin. That's not family. I stood up and walked to my bedroom. Opening the drawer of my nightstand, I looked at the silver key pendant sitting there. I picked it up, feeling its weight in my palm. That key had always been a promise, a symbol of belonging. But now it felt like a chain. I don't need their key anymore, I whispered, placing it back in the drawer and shutting it firmly. As I crawled into bed, I knew this wasn't over. They weren't going to let me go quietly, and I wasn't about to cave. But I didn't know their next move would drag me straight into a public nightmare. Oh, it started with a post, one that wasn't just meant to shame me, but to destroy me. 2 days after I sent that final message, I walked into work on a gray Wednesday morning and immediately sensed something was off. The usual chatter by the coffee machine died down when I entered. People smiled politely, but their eyes lingered too long. My stomach dropped. By the time I sat at my desk, my phone buzzed with a text from Deshawn. Check Facebook. Now! I opened the screenshot he sent. Marjorie. It was a long, sprawling post, full of carefully chosen words that twisted the truth into something unrecognizable. It breaks my heart to share this, it began, but our brother has abandoned our aging parents in their time of need. After all the sacrifices they made for him, he's decided money matters more than family. Please keep my parents in your prayers during this difficult time. She tagged me. She tagged Velma and Clarence. She tagged cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. And attached to the post? An old photo of me, standing at a barbecue in their backyard, smiling with a plate of food in my hand. Her caption under the photo read, "This is what betrayal looks like." The comments were worse. Shame on him. Some people forget who raised them. I always knew he was selfish. Dozens of them. Some from distant relatives. Some from family friends who didn't know the first thing about my life, but suddenly felt entitled to judge it. I leaned back in my chair, trying to breathe through the heat building in my chest. My phone kept buzzing with notifications. More comments, more shares, more little digital daggers from people who didn't know me, but suddenly thought they did. And then, the email came. My boss wanted to see me. I knocked on her office door, trying to compose myself. "Larkin," she said, not unkindly, but with the professional edge that told me this wasn't a social visit. Your mother reached out. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard her. My... what? She sent an email to HR, said you've been funneling money out of your family for your personal gain, that there may be financial misconduct in your personal life we should be aware of. I felt like the floor had fallen out from under me. That's a lie, I said, my voice coming out sharper than I intended. She raised a hand gently. I believe you, but understand, HR has to review it. Keep your documentation ready. I left her office in a daze, my pulse thundering in my ears. They hadn't just dragged my name through the mud in public. They'd marched it straight into my workplace. Back at my desk, I called Deshawn. They're trying to ruin me, I said. He didn't sugarcoat it. Then you fight back. Document everything, email HR, send them the bank transfers. And Larkin, don't answer their calls. No matter what. By lunchtime, I'd drafted a cold, precise email to Marjorie and my parents. If you continue to defame me publicly or interfere with my employment, I will pursue legal action. No emotions, just facts. After I hit send, I left the office for a walk, needing air. That's when I saw it. A jewelry store on the corner, its window glittering with neatly arranged pendants. In the center was one almost identical to the silver key Velma had given me years ago. I stared at it for a long moment, then muttered under my breath, "You can't lock me in your story anymore." I wasn't their scapegoat, not anymore. But instead of backing off, they came at me with something far more dangerous than words. That's when I realized they weren't just trying to shame me. They were trying to ruin me completely. The rest of that week blurred together in a fog of anxiety and exhaustion. By Friday night, my apartment looked like a bunker. Blinds drawn tight, lights dimmed. My phone sat face down on the kitchen counter, buzzing every few minutes like some kind of ticking bomb I didn't want to touch. I hadn't eaten since breakfast. I couldn't bring myself to check the messages anymore. Every time I did, it was another dagger. A cousin calling me heartless, an old family friend writing, "Your parents don't deserve this." I told myself I wouldn't listen to anything from them again. And then I pressed play anyway. It was Velma. Her voice was sharp, almost calm, the kind of tone people use when they want their words to stick like poison. "If you had any decency," she said, every syllable clipped, "you'd sign the house over to us and disappear. You don't deserve a place in this family." I sat frozen, the phone still pressed to my ear even after the voicemail ended. Those last words hit harder than Marjorie's slap. You don't deserve a place in this family. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even disappointment. It was banishment. A few minutes later, Deshawn called. I almost didn't answer, but I couldn't take being alone with those words rattling in my head. "Larkin," he said, his voice low and serious. "I need you to know something. Marjorie's been sharing your financial info. Screenshots, bank transfers. She's spinning it like you've been taking their money for yourself." For a moment, I couldn't even speak. What? She sent it to a private family chat. I saw it through someone who forwarded it to me. They're twisting everything, man. They're making you out to be some kind of thief. My chest tightened like someone had wrapped a belt around my ribs and pulled hard. It wasn't just about money anymore. They weren't satisfied dragging me in front of the family. They wanted to crush my name. I grabbed my keys and left the apartment. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove, streets blurring past in a haze of taillights and neon signs, until I ended up at some 24-hour diner on the edge of the city. The place was nearly empty. I slid into a booth by the window, staring at my reflection in the dark glass. My face looked hollow, my eyes sunken. I felt like a ghost of myself. "Maybe they're right," I whispered, the words barely audible even to me. "Maybe I am nothing without them." I didn't even realize Deshaun had come in until he slid into the booth across from me. He didn't bother with small talk. "You're not nothing," he said flatly. I tried to laugh, but it came out cracked. "They've made sure everyone thinks I am." "Of course they did," he said, "because they're scared. You stopped playing their game. You stopped being their safety net. And now they don't know how to control you." I stared at him, his words settling over me like a blanket I didn't know I needed. "You think this is the end," he said. "But it's not. This is what it looks like when you finally stop letting them use you. They panic. They hit below the belt. But you get to decide if you're going to stay down or not." I didn't answer right away. Instead, I reached up and touched the spot on my chest where the silver key pendant used to hang. It wasn't there anymore. I'd put it away days ago. But for the first time, I didn't feel naked without it. "If I don't belong to them," I said slowly, "then I belong to myself." Deshaun nodded. "Now you're starting to get it." I sat back in that booth, staring out the window at the glowing sign of the diner across the street, and something in me shifted. Quietly, without fanfare, but real. And for the first time in my life, I started planning how to make them answer for everything. See, the first step? Hitting them where it hurt the most. Their security. A week later, I walked into the bank like a different man. My suit was pressed, my shoes shined, my hair carefully combed back. It wasn't vanity, it was armor. I wasn't there as the scared, humiliated son who had been slapped in front of his parents and told to disappear. I was there as someone who finally understood his worth, someone ready to reclaim what was his. The banker, a kind woman with rimless glasses, shuffled through a thick folder of paperwork while I sat across from her, calm but coiled like a spring. "Mr. Carter," she said, looking up, "your name is still on the mortgage as a co-signer. In fact, based on your contributions, you've effectively been carrying this loan." My lips curved into something I hadn't felt in weeks, an actual smile. "So, legally speaking, I still have rights to the property?" She nodded. "More than that. You can assume full ownership if you choose. You'd need to restructure the loan, but given your payment history, it's within your rights." For the first time in a long time, I felt control slip back into my hands. They had used me like a bank, treated me like an outsider, told me I didn't deserve a place in their family. But here I was, holding the receipts, literally. I left the bank with a folder full of documents and a plan forming in my mind. The fall air hit my face as I stepped outside, sharp and electric. My phone felt heavy in my hand as I scrolled to my mother's number. "Meet me at the house," I said when she picked up. My voice was flat, deliberate. "You, Dad, and Marjorie. This ends today." Her scoff was audible. "Finally decided to do the right thing?" I almost laughed. "You'll see." That evening, I drove up the familiar cracked driveway. The house, their house, my house, looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. It wasn't home anymore. It was the battlefield where I'd been bruised for years, and tonight I'd walk out the victor. When I stepped into the living room, they were all there. Marjorie perched on the edge of the couch, arms crossed, wearing that same self-satisfied smirk she'd had the night she slapped me. Velma sat in her recliner, stiff-backed, eyes cold. Clarence stared at the TV, like if he ignored me long enough, I'd disappear. "Finally decided to come home?" Marjorie sneered. I didn't sit. I walked to the coffee table, dropped a thick envelope with a deliberate thud, and let the sound settle in the silence. "Those," I said, "are bank statements. Every payment I made, every dime you misused. And this," I pulled out another set of papers, "is my next move." Velma reached for the envelope, but I stopped her with a look. "No, you'll hear it from me first." I took a deep breath, let the silence stretch until it was unbearable. "I've assumed the loan. The house is mine now. You have 30 days to vacate. The explosion was immediate. Velma shrieked, "You ungrateful little—" Clarence slammed his fist into the armrest. "You can't just take our house!" Marjorie went pale. "You wouldn't dare!" I leaned in just enough for my voice to cut through their chaos. "You told me I didn't deserve a place in this family. Fine. But you don't deserve my home, my money, or my silence anymore." They gaped at me, stunned. For years I'd been their safety net, their punching bag, their scapegoat. But now I was the one writing the rules. As they sputtered and fumed, I reached into my pocket and pulled out the silver key pendant. Slowly, I placed it around my neck. Velma's eyes flickered to it, maybe expecting it to mean what it once did. My promise to belong to them, no matter how much it hurt me. But I said it out loud, just to make sure they understood. "This key? It's mine now. Not to this house. Not to you. To my freedom." I didn't wait for them to speak. I turned on my heel and walked out, the sound of Velma's shrill protests echoing behind me. And as I stepped off that porch, I knew this wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about finally locking that door behind me for good. But freedom has a cost, and I wasn't prepared for the weight of closing that door forever. It's been a month since that night, but some mornings I still wake up expecting to hear my phone buzzing with their messages, the endless guilt trips, the desperate demands, the venom disguised as concern. Instead, I wake to quiet. My new condo isn't much, but it's mine. Sunlight filters through half-drawn curtains and spills across the little lavender plant I put on the windowsill. I bought it on moving day, a small thing to remind myself that life could grow in new places. I walk to the kitchen and pour myself coffee, the smell filling the stillness. On the counter is a small shadow box frame I ordered online. Inside, it rests the silver key pendant. I'd kept it tucked away for weeks, but one night, I realized it deserved to be on display, not as a chain tying me to them, but as a memory, a marker of what I survived. I whisper to myself sometimes when I look at it, not a chain anymore, just a memory. Deshawn called earlier this week with an update. Velma and Clarence moved into a small rental on the other side of town. Marjorie cut off contact completely, even with them. I thought I'd feel satisfaction hearing that, but the truth, I just felt relief. Relief that their control over me was gone, relief that the storm had finally passed. There's no joy in watching the people who raised you unravel. There's only a strange, heavy silence when you realize you can't, and shouldn't, fix it anymore. This morning, I met Deshawn for lunch at a little diner near my place. We sat in a booth by the window, two old friends picking apart the pieces of my life over greasy fries and bottomless coffee. At one point I told him, "You know, I thought I'd feel powerful taking the house. I thought that moment would define me." He tilted his head, waiting. "But really, it's just a building," I admitted. The freedom was the real prize. Letting go of that house, that family I thought I had to keep proving myself to, that's what set me free. He nodded slowly, that quiet way of his that said he understood more than I could put into words. Later that afternoon, I drove by the old house one last time. I didn't plan to. My hands just sort of steered me there. It was empty now. No cars in the driveway, no lights on. Just a shell of the place I once begged to belong in. I pulled over, sat there for a moment with the engine idling, then walked up to the mailbox. I held the silver key in my hand for a long while. It felt cold, like the weight of all the years I'd spent trying to earn love from people who saw me as a resource, not a son. Then, without ceremony, I slipped it inside the mailbox. "This was never my home," I whispered. "I'm done trying to earn a place that didn't exist." The wind rustled the dry leaves across the yard as I walked back to my car. I didn't look back. When I got home, I signed up for a weekend writing workshop. It's something I'd told myself I'd do for years, but never did because I was too busy bailing everyone else out. As I hit register, I felt this small but powerful spark in my chest. When you stop trying to be what they want, I thought, you finally become who you are. That evening, I made myself dinner, simple pasta and a glass of wine. I sat by the window as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, that shadow box with the silver key catching the last bit of orange light. Sometimes freedom doesn't come with applause or forgiveness. It comes with a quiet morning, a good cup of coffee, and the knowledge that you're finally free. And for me, right now, that's enough. Have you ever had to walk away from family to protect yourself? What gave you the strength to finally do it? Tell me in the comments. I read everyone.